Hey guys, Steven here, Fanatic Perspective. So the Cowboys do one of the more predictable moves, and we've been asking for it. I know I've been asking for on this channel the firing of Mike Nolan, defensive coordinator, who Mike McCarthy had brought in, somebody who gave Mike McCarthy an opportunity as an offensive coordinator, long-time relationship. It was a poor hire. Really didn't work out here. Real, struggle with complexity. And we know there was COVID and the offseason challenges. Many teams, anybody that had any new staff or staff members faced those challenges. But to have a historically bad defense, to get off to the start that this group got off to and just kind of plummeted confidence, even after the quarterback goes down, they made the right move here. It was, and I'll get into what I'd like to see in some of those things here. But first, make sure you hit that like button and show us some love. Really appreciate all the support of the channel. We just went over 8,000 subscribers, which I'm thrilled about. We're on the road to 10K. So if you want to be a part of that movement, that journey, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the like button. Helps get our message and our videos out there to other fellow fans. Now, just with the Mike Nolan thing, what went wrong? Because coming in, I like the idea of being multiple with our defense, something similar to what you see teams like the Baltimore Ravens, New England Patriots, even now New Orleans Saints, and some of the versatility they have defensively. Not a true 3-4, not a true 4-3, but hybrid in and out. Just being able to play sound defense and match up with your opponents. That was the idea for the Cowboys. But they just off the jump, and it's not solely Mike Nolan's fault. This team was built poorly defensively. The planning that they had for the offense and how they put the offense together, it's kind of opposite with the defense where, you get a Gerald McCoy. That's awesome. And he goes down. So we didn't get to see him and evaluate him. You get a Dontari Poe. We finally felt like we got our big one technique, and that was a complete disaster. And we have to go back to Antoine Woods, and he fights the good fight for as long as he can. We lose Tristan Hill. So we're just having bad luck with the three techniques. Neville Gallimore ramps at the end of the year, but it takes him a while to get there. Tyrone Crawford looks done. So now a once promising defensive line that I know I was excited about. I made a video about it. And speaking of the defensive line, Jim Tomsula has also been let go. This was one of the most disappointing things we've seen in a long time in terms of what I felt like the expectation was, at least with the front seven, to what the product ultimately was on the field. I knew the secondary would have their issues. We've talked ad nauseum on this channel about the talent at safety. We were actually, they kind of played it how I expected them to play. The bright light, I guess you could say, was Donovan Wilson stepping in there. Corners played how I thought they would. I knew Baby Diggs would come along. Growing pains. Cheeto's Cheeto. Jordan Lewis has his problems. Anthony Brown has his problems. It is what it is with those guys. But with the defensive front, what we thought was, at least coming into the season, is, hey, we watched the San Francisco 49ers. Yeah, they had Richard Sherman, but they didn't have the best secondary play in the league. But they were able to get to the Super Bowl and have a championship-level defense because of their defensive front seven and how terrific those guys were, from DeForest Buckner and Nick Bosa to Fred Warner. Like, across the board, they were nasty. And when you look at Tank Lawrence and we go out, we get Everson Griffin, we have Randy Gregory coming back, who came on later. Aldon Smith, we didn't know what we were going to get from him, but we were excited about the possibilities to be multiple with those guys and have fun. And none of it really worked. And they were confused. And I've seen Tank Lawrence at least in the exit interview after the Giants loss, just talking about how they had to kind of go back to scratch and dumb things down, and not dumb things down, but dumb things down in terms of reducing the playbook and simplifying things. And I think even with the edge rushers, Everson Griffin's never played standing up. He's used to playing with his hand there. He's a traditional strong side 4-3 defensive end. And it's just like watching him be clueless to the point where you have to trade him to Detroit. It's not a good look. The person that actually fit the multiple scheme the best was Randy Gregory, but we kind of got him back too late, and he was great. Alden Smith can play it, but he was inconsistent this year. He hadn't played football in 5 years, and you're asking so much of somebody who hasn't played. Tank Lawrence figured it out and got back to his normal, very, very productive self, but he's not a high volume sack guy per se, even with all the pressures and how well he plays the run for the money that you're paying him. And then in conjunction, when you have everybody almost in the interior playing poorly or not, there's no ridiculous talents in there. Now it affects the linebackers. Now the linebackers, I can say it affects the linebackers, but I think the biggest letdown for me with the Mike Nolan era, Mike Nolan's supposed to be a linebacker guy. Like, he got Demario Davis over there and the boys over in New Orleans playing at all-pro level. We talked about before the season, like, the potential with Patrick Willis, with him coaching Ray Lewis, and that ship has sailed because the linebackers arguably was the worst position group on our football team this year. Jalen Smith was terrible. I know the tackles are there, but he's just not a good football player right now. Just watch the games, watch the tape. The talent is there, and he can still do some things, I think, in the right scheme and the right fit, and not asking, and just basically asking him to be more of an athlete. But he's not a good football player right now. You can't. I mean, the problem is there's nothing really behind him either. I mean, you're talking about Sean Lee, who's 85 years old, and at this point, I wish he had stepped away a little bit ago. I was texting a buddy of mine about this, about why hasn't he already transitioned into coaching? Maybe he could have been a better linebackers coach than what we got from Mike Nolan and his crew. Leighton Vander Esch, who moved to middle linebacker and became the signal caller, he struggled with injuries. He struggled with his play. He played soft at times. At times, he would flash and look like Leighton Vander Esch and being able to get and cover sideline to sideline. They play with no confidence. At times, you thought Joe Thomas was our best linebacker, and then he's not out there. So the disappointment with the linebacking crew, considering Mike Nolan was, hired, and he's never been statistically a good defensive coordinator, but at least recently with New Orleans Saints and the impact he had there, you could talk me into it, and then boom, we fall flat on our face. This is also a bad look for Mike McCarthy because the whole Mike McCarthy, the McCarthy project and the analytics and all the things they talked about before the season. And I know COVID was an issue. I know the lack of offseason, the lack of preseason and all those things. And you're trying to fit in these random pieces that may not squeak into the scheme. But it's a bad look when these guys are gone year one. It's a bad look when you have historically bad defense, when you're the worst run defense in all of football. When you're being compared to teams from the 1950s I've never even heard of for points per game allowed. It's a bad look when and this is something he inherited, but he's also now contributed to it. It's a bad look when stats come out at the end of the year that you guys are 0-16 if you don't score at least 30 points. Our offense and the talent we've had, I know injuries, we got the injury bug this year, no way around it. But the offense will be good. We know that. But with how we wasting that if we can't figure out the defense? Because for and RJ Ochoa, shout out to him on Twitter today. He threw out the thing about the last 10 years of defensive coordinators that we've had, because this is going to lead me into what is the future for this. We started the decade. Rob Ryan was in here with Jason Garrett. Then we had the one awful year of Monty Kiffin where he just is so far gone, he's out of it. And this leads me to another thing, by the way. Coaches can lose their fastball. Coaches can lose sight of the game. I talk about this a lot in college football. For those of you who watch my Texas Longhorn videos or follow any of our college football content, coaches, you can get, I don't want to say too old for the game, but you can fail to adapt when the game reaches a certain point, because football is changing every 3 to 5, at the most 7 years. The game evolves, the game changes, scheme changes, things that teams are doing. It's very, very different. That's why you look at just the variety of great quarterbacks that we have. Not just before, it used to be all the quarterbacks were good. They were all great pocket passers, but they, like all the great guys. And then you had like the one-offs like a Randall Cunningham or a Steve Young. But for the most part, they were big, strong, had very similar build. Now you have people doing it all sorts of different ways. Josh Allen's very different from Patrick Mahomes, who's very different from Lamar Jackson, who's very different from some of the older guys like Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady. So the way these teams are productive at the quarterback position means, go back to one of my favorite quotes, Mike Tomlin, you got to look like what you hunt. If you're having all these young, innovative, creative minds on offense who are doing all these really cool things with the quarterbacks, then you have to mirror that on the other side defensively, in my opinion, or at least have somebody there who can adapt with the times. Because we're talking about Rob Ryan, we're talking about Monty Kiffin, who the game was 10 years by him, couldn't do traditional Tampa 2. He was falling apart at USC in college. We go to Rod Marinelli. Rod Marinelli, up and down, just try hard. They're getting them coached up. The fundamentals are better, but we weren't a championship level defense. If we were, we wouldn't have had an issue in 2014. We get distracted with the Dez catch, but we lose sight that Aaron Rodgers had one leg in 2014 and beat us with Randall Cobb and them with a busted hamstring in Lambeau Field. Had no problem moving the ball up and down the field while we're sending Davin Coleman and Ken Bishop after him in a playoff game. And our best pass rusher is Jeremy Mincey. So you guys can talk about, oh, what could have been with all these defensive guys. 2016 is probably maybe our best defensive group, but could you say that they were great when they come out in a playoff game, get lit up in the first quarter, at the end of the game when we tied and it's 31 all, and Aaron Rodgers throws the pass roll out and throws it to Jared Cook? You don't have a championship level defense. You haven't had that. So Rod Marinelli, we bring in Chris Richard from Seattle. We want to do this hybrid cover 3 with still Tampa 2 concepts on the front end. And it was cool for a little bit until the league figured it out. 2018, it was great. And then we got figured out. And that was kind of some of the young, innovative energy we had or needed. But Chris Richard brought a different vibe, but they never really wanted to hand him the keys completely. When it really probably should have been him running the whole defense. I know he was the pass game defensive play call or whatever, but he never had the DC title. And I never felt like it was truly his defense. So you have Rod Marinelli all that time, and now we go into Mike Nolan. So you've had old heads running your defense for the last 10 years. Where's that youthful energy that y'all are doing with Kellen Moore on the other side, working with a Mike McCarthy? And that leads me to this. They really need to consider innovation from a defensive standpoint. Yes, they need leadership over there, but they need somebody to come in and say, all right, this is what I'm going to do with these parts. You guys have some high draft picks. Boom, boom, boom. We're going to get after the quarterback, and we're going to have some athletes back there that can get, whether it's getting the safety. The Cowboys have to get out of their traditional mindset of certain positions don't matter, like one tech or safety or, whatever. Like, open it up to whoever that new defensive coordinator will be. They're talking about promoting George Edwards, who's currently on the staff. And I know he was the defensive coordinator up in Minnesota under Mike Zimmer. Maybe that takes us back to more of a traditional look, but that doesn't elicit any confidence in the fan base, in my opinion. I know George Edwards is a qualified defensive coordinator, but if he was as good as they may think, he'd be a defensive coordinator elsewhere, is my point. They got to get creative. I've heard some good things about the cornerback coach over for the for the Los Angeles Rams. We know Jalen Ramsey, outside of his obvious pass interference BS that pulled in week 1, probably cost us the game. He had an awesome year. Their corners play well. People like that, where it's like come in, breath of fresh air, different type of coaching style, different type of energy. I feel like a lot of the guys, especially the guys that have been here a little bit longer, either you transition through them or they need a different voice. That's just where I'm at. The only old head I would consider that has been brought up is Marvin Lewis, who's currently over at Arizona State with Herm Edwards. The reason why I say Marvin Lewis is because I think he was just as qualified to be the head coach as Mike McCarthy, in my opinion. And now I get 2 head coaches, and Marvin Lewis, say what you want about him, he develops coaches. His coaching tree is actually quite nice when you go back and look at it, which includes people like Mike Zimmer. So I would take a look. If that's the old head move they want to do, I would steer away from that. But if there's anybody that I think would be qualified to where I overlook the age. I'm not trying to discriminate against age. I'm more so saying let's adapt to how offenses and teams are playing us. Because when you look at the talent level around the division, I think Washington, if they ever figure out their quarterback thing, they could be a problem. Philadelphia is a mess. The Giants, I actually like the Giants coaching staff and what they got going on with Joe Judge, Patrick Graham. We'll see what happens with Jason Garrett. But now's the time to strike with the NFC East. Going 2021, fresh start, top 10 pick, offense coming back. Mike Nolan's out. Jim Tomsula's out. Y'all hit me in the comments with who you'd like to see as the defensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys. I'm done with these mediocre ass defenses, and I'm definitely done with the all bad, all time worst defenses. And I know people are going to say, well, if all your money in the cap is invested in the offense, how could you ever put together a good defense? Well, how did any of these teams ever do it? Whether it's the Chiefs, I'm not saying they have an all-world defense, but they got people over there. Whether I see the Honey Badger made first team All-Pro, I know they got Chris Jones over there, and then the rest of it they scout well, and their front office handles business and gets people that are sound and competent. The Cowboys should be able to do the same, whether money is tied up on the offense or not. That's what your scouting department is there. That's why you go and find people like Neville Gallimore and Trayvon Diggs who are going to be here. Build. Maybe you divest the linebacker position and start over with some guys and say, you know what, we're going to have this level of the defensive line is going to be nasty, and we're going to have some good coverage play, and we'll work from there and try to find some people. All these other teams seem to find people, all over the place on defense, and we'll find guys here and there, and then when we do find somebody, we don't want to play them, Donovan Wilson. So the Cowboys have a lot of stuff to get over that predated Mike Nolan. It's just that you can't come in here and be the worst ever. I can't have that. Anyway, I'm rambling. Guys, I appreciate y'all. Hit that like button. Thanks for 8K. Out. I'll be back later. Enjoy the playoff games this weekend.